Hello and welcome to this edition of QLogic's Make I/O Matter video series for HP. Today's session is going to focus on demonstrating how to configure network partitioning using HP flexible network adapters from QLogic. So let's get started. Here's an agenda of what we're going to go through today. First, I'm going to do a brief description to review what NPAR technology is and the functionality it provides. Then we'll take a quick look at the test system that we're going to be using. Then we're going to talk about some of the system configurations I've done prior to the demonstration itself, and then we'll get right into the network partitioning configuration demo. So what is NPAR? NPAR, or NIC partitioning as you'll hear it referred to, is a means for virtualizing the 10 gig network connectivity at the adapter level on HP adapters. NPAR allows a user to virtualize a single port into 4 virtualized ports, and then those virtualized ports are presented to the host operating systems as network connections. NPAR technology is available on the flexible network adapter offerings from HP and QLogic, including the 530, the 533, 534 series Ethernet and FlexFabric adapters for HP ProLiant servers, and also available on the HP FlexFabric CN1100R Converged network adapters, also for ProLiants. With NPAR, one adapter becomes 8. Administrators have the ability to fine-tune bandwidth on each of the virtualized ports so they have full quality of service control. And the ability to utilize a single dual-port 10 gig adapter to provide multiple network functions to the OS greatly simplifies server and storage network connectivity and administration. Here's a look at the test system that we'll be using today. It consists of a ProLiant DL380 Gen8 server running Microsoft Windows 2012 R2 with Hyper-V, and we have 2 of the flexible network adapters installed in this particular server. The HP FlexFabric CN1100R Converged network adapter, which is actually the one we're going to be working with, and we also have an HP FlexFabric 10 gig 533 FLRT flexible LOM. This is the 10G base T connector flexible LOM from the flexible network adapter family. Before I get into the demonstration, there's some things I've done to the system. First of all, I've powered it up, installed Microsoft Windows Server 2012 R2, I installed the drivers, installed the firmwares, and we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run Device Manager to start and verify what the current device connections are for the OS. Then I'm going to reboot the server and access the Comprehensive Configuration Manager utility. Now, this utility actually resides in the BIOS of the adapter. It's part of the firmware installation, and you actually run it on the adapter and configure the adapter. The cool thing is one instance of CCM can actually manage multiple adapters in the same server. Can't span servers, but I can manage multiple adapters from one instance of CCM in the same physical server. Then I'm going to enable NPAR on the CN1100R, and then we're going to go back in and verify the connection. So let's get started. Okay, well, we're booted into our server now, and we want to check the configuration of our network connection. So I'm going to open up Computer Manager and Device Manager, and let's take a look at how many network connections we have in this server. As you can see here, we've got 2 533 FLRT network connections, and we've got 2 network connections for the CN1100R. Because the CN1100R is capable of running converged Ethernet, it also is configured by default in what we call single function mode. And what that means is it provides a single function of NIC and a single storage function. In the case of HP firmware, that storage function defaults to FCOE. So you can see here there are a couple of FCOE connections as well from the CN1100R. So that's what we've got. And now what we're going to do is reboot the server and run the CCM utility and enable NPAR. And when we enable NPAR, what we should see are, instead of 4 functions here, we should see 8 functions on the adapter when CCM is done configuring. So let's go ahead and reboot our server. As we reboot our server, we'll get a message that talks about invoking the NetExtreme multi-boot agent. And that's what we're going to want to do. And we do that with a Control S. So that message will come up here in just a second. And we use Control S to enter the configuration menu. And now we're running the Comprehensive Configuration Management utility. Now you can see here from the device list the four network connections that we had are shown here. The first two are from the 533 FLRT, and the second two are from the CNA or the CN 1100R Converged Network Adapter. So I'll configure down to the Converged Network Adapter and press the Enter key. Now, this is where you can configure the device, multi-boot configurations, iSCSI and FCOE boot configurations, and then NIC partition configurations as well. But before we can do any NIC partitioning or NPAR configurations, we have to enable NPAR. And we do that from the device hardware configuration menu. So I select that, and you can see that the default is in single function mode. That's what the SF stands for. So I will change that to NPAR, and we'll back out of that. And now I have NPAR enabled. So I'll go look at my NIC partition configurations now. And here are my four functions for port 0. And you can see there are even functions, 0, 2, 4, and 6. And the first, third, and fourth functions are Ethernet. And you'll notice if I try to configure an Ethernet configuration on either 0, 4, or 6, I get a read-only statement down here, which means I can't change the personality. I can change some of the parameters, like the bandwidth weighting and those kind of things, but I can't change the personality. The only place I can change personality is on the second function. So I'll select the second function, and instead of iSCSI, let's go to FCOE here on this particular port. Now, the bandwidth weighting and maximum bandwidth, this is where you get the quality of service control. So bandwidth weighting is fundamentally where if I want to carve up a particular percentage of the 10 gigabit bandwidth available on this port and assign it to this particular function to guarantee this function a particular bandwidth, this is where I would do that. Now the caution with bandwidth weighting is the sum of the bandwidth weights for all four functions on the port must equal either 0 or 100%. So if I set the bandwidth weight for one function, I have to set it for the other three functions to make the total equal 100%. In terms of maximum bandwidth, this is where I can set those 100 megabit increments. I can set this value from 1 to 100, and that allows me to go from 100 megabits all the way to 10 gig available bandwidth. So we've got this set to FCOE, and we'll back out of port 0, and now let's go check port 1. So before we can do that, we have to exit and save our configuration because we made a change. So we do that, and it tells us that we have to reboot the server to make this change go into effect. So I will go to port 1 just to verify it's in NPAR mode. In fact, it is, so that's forced. When you set port 0, you're going to get NPAR on port 1. We'll back out of that and go down to our NIC configuration. And here again, you can see that we've got a hardware or a HPA function on the second function. Now in this case, all of our functions are odd, the 1, 3, 5, and 7. On physical function 3, I'll change that one to, let's change that to a NIC function. So we'll only have one storage function in our configuration. So we'll save that, and we'll exit out, and we'll save our configurations, and we'll exit to quit the menu, and we'll reboot our server. Log in. Now we're logged into our server. We'll go ahead and get Device Manager up and running again and see how our connections have changed in terms of what I/O is presented to the operating system. So we'll open up Device Manager, and now you can see that we have 7 network connections and 1 storage connection, 1 FCOE connection that we configured. So that's how easy it is to configure NPAR with the Comprehensive Configuration Manager utility. So let's take a look at what we learned. First, we learned NPAR allows for adapter-based virtualization for both Ethernet and Converged Ethernet connections in HP ProLiant DL, ML, and SL servers. We also learned that NPAR supports a single function per port when using converged adapters. That per port functionality can be either iSCSI or FCOE. Then we learned that NPAR is supported on a variety of the flexible network adapters from HP and QLogic and the converged network adapter CN1100R. And finally, we learned that NPAR can be enabled using the Comprehensive Configuration Management utility, which is part of the adapter BIOS. For more information, access our HP microsite at www.qlogic.com/go/HP. Here you'll find lots of information on the products and technology that we talked about today, and this includes white papers, data sheets, technology briefs, and more. If you're interested in HP-specific I/O technology training, check out our training site for HP at hp.qlogictraining.net. Here you'll find a variety of short on-demand training courses, and you'll have the opportunity to gain a certification on HP QLogic adapter technology. If you're a first-time user of this site, make sure that you use the access code that's shown here. Well, that's it for this session of QLogic's Making I/O Matter for HP. I want to thank you for your time and attention, and if you have any questions, you can reach the team using the contact link on our HP QLogic website, or send us an email at hpsolutions@qlogic.com. Until next time, keep helping us make I/O matter, and have a wonderful rest of your day.